Good evening, everyone, or good afternoon, or good next day. Welcome to the Cosmic Tune-Up Happy Hour here with Rebecka Gregory. I just want to give a shout out to everyone to take a deep breath and settle into the space for 1 hour. And I thank all those who are joining us this evening and just enjoying the times that we're in right now. It's funny today, and I know it's September 11 here in the States, and our guest this evening is from actually England, so it's the next day for her. So, but, I just want everybody right now, just to, in homage of everything, just to, take a deep breath right now and just put your hand on the heart. And I know there's a lot of those people out there that are still grieving for what happened on September 11th, here in the States and all around the world. So, and everything else that's going on. So let's just take just a deep breath, put our hands on our hearts again, and just send out some love to everyone out there that might be struggling during these times, that might have lost ones years ago on September 11th. Just send out that unconditional love to them, that they can open up, that they can heal and move forward. Just breathe into that, sending out the love, feeling in your heart, and being aligned to who you are, the beautiful light energy being that we truly are. And step into that light and be that light in the oneness of who we are. And just take a deep breath in and just shake it off, sending it out and settling in for an hour of the Cosmic Tune-Up Happy Hour. So this evening's guest, which I will be bringing her on in a few minutes, is Susie Antara James from England, who is a beautiful spirit. She's an Angelic Soul Coach. And I had the pleasure of meeting Susie for the first time actually this evening. But however, years ago, we were supposed to do a retreat together and we were going to drive cross country together. Unfortunately, that did not work out. But talking about divine intervention, and I wanted to bring that up, and how oneness and how things come together. It was just like last week, I was like, I need to invite Susie this week on my show. And I messenger, I'm like, hey, you want to be on the show? And here she is tonight joining us here. So, I want everybody right now to, to kind of sit back, and the message of the evening is just like oneness and just moving into who we are and the divinity of who we are. And I love to pull cards. So I did pull a card ahead of time for a little poem. I was looking for a poem and, this one came out and I drew the Rumi card. And the one that came out is number 6, which is 1. And I'm just going to read the poem. I have abolished duality from myself. I have seen the two worlds as one. One I seek, one I know, one I see, one I call. You look for me, and what do you see? You, am I playing games with you, holding up a mirror for you to behold God? Yes, these are games of love and truth. Look for me and find yourself, for I am you and you are me, and together we are one, playing hide and seek in love's great playground. And what a beautiful message to come through tonight, that I pulled, because that's where we are right now. We are in this world, and I talk about this all the time on the show. We're in this world, in this great battle, if you want to say, in this game that we're playing here on this planet, of love and fear, and learning how to live in our truth. Thank you, Jean. Live in our truth of who we are. And that's what it's all about. The love and the truth and the fear, and moving through that to align to who you are and stepping into the sovereignty of who you are, and knowing that energetic being inside, connected to that human part of us, to merge together as one, and to look at the world as the outside mirror of the reflection, what's inside, and being in the oneness of that reflection inside, of opening yourself up to flow of the light you truly are, and being the beingness of you, and slowing down so you can see and be guided by that divinity and have the patience. And we've been given a lot of patience right now to sit back and allow that all to unfold. Right now, everybody, everybody's been pulled in to take the time to learn patience, to take the time to be, to take the time to look at things from a different point of view. And so I invite everybody, all you cosmic explorers out there, where can you look at something on the outside that you need to bring inside, that you might be not wanting to bring the oneness of you and the truth of you and are kind of hiding from, that needs to come forward, that needs to step forward in order to move yourself into your true potentiality of truth and love and heart in the oneness of who we all are. So that's my little message for this evening. So I appreciate you all for listening to that. And if you want to call in tonight, I did bring up the call board. So we're expanding out tonight to the call, back to the call board. And the number is 517-208-1500. Also, if you're online listening, Facebook, we're on Oneness Talk Radio or YouTube. I think Facebook has a capability to type in chats. So if you want to chat there, and Susie also said this evening that if you're interested, just put a shout out or call in that she would do a reading or a small card reading for someone. If you'd like to let me know about that as we move along, hearing her beautiful story. And anything else we got to say? I think that's it. So further ado, I'm going to bring on Susie Antara, and I'm so grateful for her right now because we all actually got the time difference. So she is in England in the witching hour right now at 1:00 in the morning, joining us live. So thank you, Susie, for being there. And I'm going to bring her on, and hopefully we got all this working and everything's good to go. And are you there?
Hi, lovely. Thank you so much. Yeah. 1 a.m. Wow, who'd have thought that I'd still be awake at this time in the morning? But you know what? I'm absolutely buzzing. Yeah, I'm just so very grateful. Thank you so much for having me here. It's wonderful. I love the energy, the beautiful introduction. And yeah, let's just see what this next almost an hour brings us.
I know, it goes really fast, so we better get started. So and maybe we can make some magic along the way because we are in that hour, and I got a thunderstorm going on outside. So if you feel a lot of zips and zaps coming through, that's probably where it's coming from. So
yes, I noticed on your little video you sent me the other day that beautiful little fairy dancing around in the flame.
Oh, isn't that beautiful? Maybe next week, what I'll do on the show is try to figure out how to do the video to share it with everyone because it was pretty incredible. It was. I was like, I could tell you, I was really amazed. I told everybody to shut up because we had a fairy.
Yeah, it was incredible. I was like, wow, yes, that is definitely. Because sometimes you question, don't you? You look and you think, is it the flame? Is it? But it was just so obvious.
That was very obvious. And it was really funny. So talk about divine intervention and timing and how like we can manifest like that and the magic that we're in right now. Literally right before that, I was sitting in meditation before we did the fire. I'm like, okay, guys, fairies, I know you're out there. I feel you all the time. Can you just show yourself to me for once, please? And 10 minutes later, I have my little camera, which I never have my camera. I'm not a filmer person. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a fairy. Everybody be quiet. So everyone out there listening, I will figure out how to share the video so you can enjoy the
absolutely. Just phenomenal. Lovely. And that's all this energy work that we do, connecting with the elementals, connecting with the angels. I mean, and that's how we met, was through the angels, joining the same angel course and everything. And they're just such a huge part of my life, and I absolutely love it. And the thing, just now when we were sat chatting before I came on, I could just feel them all. I'm just I've not felt them so intensely like this, and they're obviously just so really thrilled to be here, and to have this space to share with another angel soul. So it's fantastic.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. If I can, I have the bubble machine right here. We can break it out if they need it. So just let me know.
All righty.
Tell me a little bit about yourself and where you are and like what you do and like what brought you to the angels and the fairies and just whatever you like to
Yeah,
share.
I mean, it's a story I actually do love to share, although it does have some sadness to it to start with. Um, I've always been interested. I mean, apparently as a child, my mum says I played with fairies in the garden. I don't recall this. It was something that obviously time just diminished the memories. But I've always had some sort of interest in like spirit and the angels. So for many years, I just used to watch the movies, you know, things like that, and never
Mm-hmm.
really got into it. And then after 12 years of marriage, my husband passed away. And 3 nights after he passed away, I'd spent 3 days obviously crying, grieving, and just saying to God, the universe, whoever, please, did he suffer? Because I don't know. He just collapsed, you see. So my fear was that he'd suffered. So for those 3 days, that thought just went round and round in my head. Anyway, I was laid asleep. And you know when you have that feeling somebody's in the room and you wake up. So I
Mm-hmm.
looked and nobody in the room. My mum was asleep in the bed with my two sons. I was on a little sort of layout bed on the floor, so to speak. And then this bright light appeared in the corner of the room, just a little tiny pinpoint. And I watched it and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And it just filled the whole of the wall of one side of the room. And I'm thinking, surely everybody must be waking up now. You know, they must see this, but they stay, you know, fast asleep. Anyway, this figure walked through from the light, from the tunnel of the light, and walked through towards me. And I kept watching, and he grew bigger and bigger and bigger. And the only way I can describe it, and this is how angels are so, I can only say good at what they do, because the
Mm-hmm.
English language for me sometimes is just such a trying to find the right words to fit what the experience is. But anyway, he looked like a giant, but was a man size because he fitted in the door frame, so to speak. So
Mm-hmm.
I was puzzled by this because I kept looking and thinking, how can you look like a giant, but you look like, you know. Anyway, the next thing I saw was my husband was laid at his feet. He picked him up, and even through all of this, I was crying, but I wasn't frightened. I
Yes.
I just felt so cocooned in this light and this energy, and I just felt so loved. But obviously, I was crying because this was my husband I was seeing,
Yes.
and he picked him up. And again, for me, the angels have a great sense of humour, even in the times that seem to be the most tragic and the direst. They have a way of bringing such a sense of love and almost joy to you. And as strange as that may seem, but it's what you need, I feel, when you are in that space of suffering. Because what he did was he unzipped his chest. You know, a great big zip appeared in the middle of his chest, unzipped him, lifted his heart out into his hand, held it, pulled his heart to his chest, and then put it back in my husband's chest and zipped him back up again, and then folded him up into his arms, and then just drew back into the light. Now, I'm saying that quite quickly, and it's making it sound almost like, I suppose, a bit of a film, really. To try and describe how it felt and the energy that came with it, there are no words for it. It was
Mm-hmm.
just phenomenal. And this being, he was wearing a white robe, he had the long brown hair, a long beard, but the most amazing, stunning blue eyes I've ever seen. And I've never seen that colour blue since. Never in
Beautiful.
anybody, in any being. Not in a crystal, anything like that. And to this, as I'm talking, I can see him as clear now as he was that day. So that started me on my journey with angels, really, because with that experience, how can you not believe? You
Yes. Yes.
know? So that took me on a journey. I didn't really get, I suppose, into working with the angels then, because obviously I was going through the grieving process.
Oh.
But what happened then, within a few weeks of that happening, I met what I consider to be an earth angel. And I met this lady. I can't remember her name. I can't remember where I met her. Can't remember how I met her. And all I can recall about her is that she was a bit taller than me, had the most gorgeous brown hair, and the most amazing blue eyes.
Mm.
And what she gave me was a rose quartz crystal. in the shape of a heart.
Beautiful.
Told me to wear it, told me to sleep with it. If I was grieving, to hold it to my heart. And that started me on a journey with crystals. So I'm now a trained crystal therapist. I love my crystals. They are my yeah, dragons, crystals, angels. They are my family as far as I'm concerned. And that really just started me on the journey of learning as much as I could and learning
beautiful.
the angels. Studied lots of modalities as you do, did my Reiki courses, color therapy, meditation. And over the years, I suppose I started off looking and thinking, this will be a way for me to work. And then I can give up my day job, because my day job for 40 years was to work as a nurse in the operating room. So I've always done that. And then I wanted to change. I wanted to do all my spiritual work and make that my job. But life as it goes, that never really happened. So I continued nursing right up until 3 years ago when I retired. Then I worked as an agency. But during all of this, I was always doing something spiritual.
Yes.
Either working with angels, learning something new, because I'm very much a believer that to know how something works, you have to experience it. Now, I said this to myself many years ago while I was doing my journey and and I just went, I really need to be an experiential learner. I know that's the way I learn. Well, woe betide what you ask for sometimes. Because within about the space of 3 years of saying this, now I'm not saying this will happen to anybody or everybody that, has that thought in their head. It was just my experience and my journey. But I ended up in hospital 3 separate occasions for 3 different types of surgeries. One was, a couple of them were emergency surgeries, and one was through choice. And through that, I then came to understand how a patient felt, how it felt for them to have an operation, how it felt for them to have an anaesthetic. So I was more empathic with my patients as they came through. But yeah, when you ask for something,
they give it to you if you want it or not.
Definitely. Yeah. So I had those experiences as well. And really, I've learned to this point today, I've sort of realized that everything I've been learning, has always been for me to begin with, because I am a huge believer in that if we do anything of this work, we need to heal ourselves.
Yes.
In the Bible, it said, I can't remember the exact part of it. I know it's Mark something, but in there it said, Jesus says, "Physician, heal thyself." And I always said, "Healer, heal thyself," long before I ever found out about that quote in the Bible. That just came to me, and I've lived by that premise ever since. Because we are, as you say, human beings. We have things that go on in life. We are an ever evolving, ever growing, ever learning, sentient being. And part of that sometimes requires healing. So working.
Oh, go ahead.
So going through life, so I did all these variety, and I realized that they've become my toolkit, because the big part of the work that I do now is I call myself an energy intuitive. I work with the angels because they're an energy, but I also work with other forms of energy as well, because we are all energy. Everything around us is energy. So it might be one day that I'll work with a dragon energy, another day it'll be angels, might be a fairy, it might be colour, might be sound, and it's all part of what I call my toolkit. And then it was about 5 years ago, I had some really deep meditations going on, and I kept receiving the name Antara, and I was like, oh, okay, what does that, and then I kept getting symbols that I was drawing, and then I went through a bit of a crisis, I suppose. We all have them,
Yeah.
We would be lying if we didn't, said we didn't. I call them the peaks and troughs of spiritual growth, because sometimes we're way up here and everything's blissful and wonderful, and then down we go. And it depends on how far we go down. And I was at a point in my life where lots of things were going on, and I just felt deeply, deeply sorrowful. And I knew it wasn't all to do with what was taking place with me in terms of friendships, relationships, that sort of thing. There was something more to it. And I remember laying on my floor in my living room on my hands and knees, sobbing, absolutely crying my eyes out. And I didn't know why. It just was happening. And that's when Antara came in, and this energy of this being just lifted me.
Beautiful.
And I'm like, okay. And I guess in some respects, the only way I can describe it, it's about the closest I've ever felt to being to that divine energy that we call source, God, however you want to refer to it, And for me, it just lifted me. And I was, I almost felt like I'd been physically lifted off the carpet. And in that moment, I knew everything was going to be all right. But I still had healing work to do. So I went through the process of doing some self-healing. And again, as an energy intuitive, I want to say this as well. When you're working on healing, and we are very good at doing our own healing work, but it's so much better when somebody else does it for you.
Yes, it is.
Because you can just take yourself out, literally. I don't know about you, but when I'm doing my own self-healing, I'm very aware of what I'm doing. But when somebody else is doing it for me, I can shut my eyes, I can allow myself to go, and the next thing I know, they're going, Sue, you can come right now.
Because I think when you know how to do your self-healing, I feel, you almost allow your ego to come into play. But when you allow somebody and, to work
Absolutely.
with you can relax because you're not being in control. So I am a firm believer of that. We need to do our own work as far as digging down and looking at things, but get the energy work to assist each other, because we are together to help each other. So awesome.
Most definitely. So that sort of almost brings me up to date. And then for a couple of years, because of certain circumstances, again, I just put everything to one side, and I moved home a couple of times, and all of that was taking place. And then 2 years ago, I connected with a lovely chap who lives in America. I'm going to have to say, because I've completely forgotten the city he lives in. But I connected with him, and he's called Antara, and we did a lot of energy work together. And Antara came back through that process.
Okay.
And that's why the name Antara has been, it's been given to me, and it felt right now to connect with it, to use it. I feel that whoever she is, and I know she's a she because she's shown herself to me in that sort of energy form. As to where she's originated from and why, I don't know yet, but that's a work in progress. And one of the things that I did eventually learn about the name is that it means the space within the space. And that actually makes so much sense to me. I resonate so deeply with that, because anybody who looks at what we do energy wise, there's space within everything,
There is.
The molecules that may come together to form a table, there's space between them. You look at quantum physics, we live in different dimensional energies, so it makes perfect sense. And that's how Antara sort of came into being as well.
Oh, beautiful. Now, is that one of the healings that you do? I noticed that you did the Parakeets healing. Is that, and have any specifics that you can share, or is it just energy that you draw in and work with people that has been gifted to you?
Yeah, and at the time, that's when she first came through with that, and I started drawing the symbols, I did put them all to one side, and they all came flooding back again about a year ago now. So I've got quite a few drawings with the symbols for Antara that was given to me. So I don't use them in Reiki, you draw the symbols and that's how you work. I don't work in that way. What I do is, if I'm working with somebody on the Antara energy, then I usually, depending on where they're at and what's going on for them, and again, this is energy work, I will choose one of the symbols to send to them. They then have that to focus on, almost like a meditation.
Okay.
So then they're given that and that's theirs to work with and use. And then when we work on a one-to-one together, I tune in and we connect at a heart center, and I just call in the energy of Antara and work that way. And then obviously it's all about, in that moment, what's taking place. I mean, I'm sure you found it yourself. You know, when you're working with somebody, they may come to you with a specific question or a specific issue, but then when you connect and make that, you know, the angels come in, or spirit, or the divine, whoever you're working with, something different might come through. And what the person is wanting isn't always what we're giving, because it's not what's needed in that moment. So I always explain to those that I'm working with, yes, if we'll work on that, we'll look at it. But if that's not what's needed at this moment in time, then it might be that something different takes place.
Oh, beautiful. Now, is that something you just do in person, or are you doing them online as well?
I
So if
can do them
anybody's
online
interested
now.
listening.
I mean, when I first started working with Antara, as you do, you ask your friends, don't you?
You do.
Just come and be a guinea pig. Let me just practice. So I had 6 lovely ladies who volunteered when I first started working with the Antara energy, and they were my guinea pigs, so to speak. And it was all literally done online. So I think 2 or 3 of them I did sort of on face-to-face calls, like we can see each other now. But the rest of them I just did through Messenger. I just chatted to them, you know, asked them what they could feel, see, or sense, and they all gave me such lovely feedback as well. So
beautiful. So we'll get all your information at the end, so people can find you. So what do you find, like, working right now with the energies and how the world's changing right now? What's coming through? What do you have to help assist others out there? You know, one of the reasons I started the show is to, you know, spread knowledge, to help people navigate what's going on right now. So do you have any words or wisdom you like to share with the audience now?
For me, I feel it's really a time now that we can all look at going within ourselves. So finding those techniques that work for us. Now, obviously, for anybody who does any sort of work like this, you know, meditation is the key. You know, I am a firm believer in meditation, and I quite often get clients who'll say to me, can't meditate, haven't got time. And I'm like, well, even now, you know, when we're at home doing what we're doing because of what's taking place. Oh yeah, I'm far too busy. I say, okay. So I always catch them and say, right, okay, just tell me one thing. Do you take a bath or do you shower? And they'll go, either or. So I was like, and how long do you spend in there? 20 minutes, half an hour? Perfect. What better space and time to take a meditation? And they go, oh, yes.
Oh, beautiful.
So that's one thing. And I think, you know, finding the time for ourselves at this moment is really important. And that sounds a strange thing to say when we feel like we have got so much time because we're at home, not doing, you know, not going out to work, not seeing family or friends, not doing what we would always normally do. And yet a lot of people I talk to are saying, I don't have time, but I'm at home all the time. And I feel that's because we spend too much time in our head. So we're always overthinking where we're going, what we're doing. We're worrying about tomorrow or next week or the week after, you know. And I understand that because we're all in this situation as well. You know, I lost my job the end of March. So I've been out of work since March. So I know how that feels to have that concern. But it's about being in the moment. It's about really not focusing on the what ifs, because we don't know, you know.
And I was saying too, I also feel now, you know, as I said in the beginning of the show, right now, it's like pushing us, as you're saying, to be present, but also to trust more than ever, to surrender and trust, knowing everything will be okay.
Yeah, definitely. You know, and don't get me wrong, I did suffer. You can read about it in one of my blogs on my website. I call it my dressing gown week. When I was first laid off from work, and I lost a significant income when I got laid off work. And I'm very blessed. I have pensions and they keep me afloat. But compared to what I had, that was a huge loss for me. And anything as well. And this is another thing I'd like to say. People think that when you're grieving, it's because you've lost somebody. Somebody's passed away and you grieve, and that's the only time you can grieve. No, you can't. A loss is a grief, whether it be a loss of your job, a loss of your home, a loss of a friendship, a relationship, a pet, even your car keys. In that very brief moment, that reaction is, there are stages of grief: anger, acceptance, I can't remember the other three now, but we go through those. I should do. I lift them for a while, but they're obviously not that important, are they? In that respect at the moment. But we do. We lose something, we grieve, and of course, I lost my job, and I went from working 5 days a week, being in the company of my work colleagues, to sitting at home doing, with just me and the dogs. And for 2 or 3 weeks, it was fine. I was on holiday, loved it. It was great. And then all of a sudden, reality started to kick in.
Yes.
And I was on my own. We weren't able to go out and see friends, but I was trying to keep myself busy. And I kept saying, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. And all my spiritual work sort of just disappeared for a bit. And then I had a realization that I'd been sat in my dressing gown for 3 days. I got up, fed the dogs, fed myself, brushed my teeth. That was it. And that's not me. I know that's not me. And then a couple of days later, I was crying uncontrollably, couldn't stop, didn't know what was wrong. And then suddenly the realization hit me that I call it my dressing gown head falling off moment, but obviously everything going on had impacted me. But when I went into meditation and asked and thought about it, I realized it wasn't just my emotions. I was taking on and feeling everybody else's emotions as well. And I reached out, because one thing, I don't know about you, Becky, but one thing we're very good at not doing is asking for help.
For help, yeah.
We're the first ones to stand up and say, I'll help you. Let me do that for you. We're the first ones to be there. But when it comes to ourselves, it's like, no, can't possibly do that. And, I was very blessed. I had a couple of friends who touched base with me, obviously had tuned in and felt something wasn't right. And I was like, okay. And so this is what's happening. So they're like, right, this is it. And they helped me get sorted. So I think it's about being present in the now, not worrying about the future, because we don't know what the future is going to bring us until it arrives. Fear, it's for me, it's that false reality that we make up, that we think the worst possible thing can happen, and then actually it doesn't ever happen.
I know.
So and really be gentle with yourself. That's another thing. We're so good at beating ourselves up and saying, I shouldn't feel like that. I shouldn't be and I should be doing this and I should be doing that. And and just reach out and ask. That's wow.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, as you were talking, one thing that was coming to me when you were thank you for sharing that story. And for to me and also everyone listening, for the future, because you're not alone in that situation.
Yeah.
And it's almost like now, I was thinking of vulnerability when you were going through your story on, and the coat and pulling it off. And, I don't know about you, but I feel like that's where the whole world is right now. We're being stripped down to the bareness of who we truly are to build back up.
Absolutely.
And as you were saying, to take care of yourself is so important right now as we're being stripped away.
Yeah.
So many people are going into fear and what's happening, but to, just allow that to happen, because that's part of what is happening now. You
Yeah.
know, if you
Yeah.
do, you feel the same thing? Like that's what's happening in the world right now. I mean,
Sure.
on
Yeah.
so many different levels and layers.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you go, I don't do politics, I'm not somebody that gets involved in all of the politics side of what's going on. Um, I believe, and I know there are lots of different thoughts and theories out there. And for me, we're all individual, we're all unique, we all have our own belief systems, and I honor each and everybody's, and respect everybody for that. For me, my feeling is, as you say, we are being stripped back. We are being shown what's important and what's not important. We are being shown that we can live without certain things in our life. For years I owned a car. I had to let my car go once I lost my job. I've reconnected with going out walking again. You know, I've spent the last couple of weeks going out for 2 and 3 hour walks, which I would never have done. I would never have considered doing when I had the car. It was just so easy to get in and go, you know. But that was a loss in itself for a couple of days, and so I grieved that. But now I feel so much better for the fact that I am going out and walking about. But I could have gone into a different frame of mind and thought, oh, I've lost my car, I can't do this, I can't do that. Instead, I went, actually, yes, I can. I can walk, I can catch a bus, I can get on a train, and whilst I appreciate, there's all the social distancing going on, you can make that journey an experience that you can enjoy, you know, and and it's about the mindset that you put into it as well, how you feel around it. But for me, more importantly, when we're in that positive mindset, when we're able to be in that space of love, then we put that out into the world. And I feel that's what we're doing. Those of us that are light workers, whatever we want to call ourselves, light workers, light beings, healers, all of that, that energy that we're putting out into the world is cleansing. And
Yes.
that's what's needed at the moment for me. It's shining in the darkest of places for a lot of people now. It's bringing forth, what some people call the dark things that are taking place. And please believe me when I say this, I don't negate anything that's bad in the world as not being there. It's just I don't focus on it. I know these things happen. I know there are traumas taking place for lots of souls in the world. I also have an awareness and an understanding that we chose our journeys before we incarnated, and whatever that journey may be. So my role for me is to stay in that positive light, is to stay in that energy of love and send that out there. And when you focus on that, that's what you draw back to you.
Exactly.
When you focus on the dark corners, on the dark things that are happening, then that's what you draw more of to you.
Yes.
And that has an impact on your energy. So it's about, I feel, understanding, having the awareness that those things are happening, they're taking place, it's not right, but the universe always deals with the situation at hand, is my belief. So whatever, if you want to use the word karma, whatever karma is to come to those souls, wherever they are, whatever status they're in, whatever karma is there, it will come, it will happen, and we've got to just maintain that light to help cleanse and heal all those situations without focusing on them, without making them your point of focus, so that you draw that energy to you. You don't want that.
Yeah, I firmly would agree with that. And also I think too, like personally with your shadow side, you also right now is looking at the darkness within yourself, of, is moving forward because it is out there, but also realizing that, a lot of your gifts are hitting in that darkness and becoming allies with it now instead of running from it, and move the light into it so you can bring the love to it. Instead of allowing it to take you over, so you can be in that space of love.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I call that, my dressing gown week. I call it going down the rabbit hole. You know, I love the story of Alice in Wonderland, and that's how it felt. I felt like I was in this spiral. I was going down the rabbit hole and things were getting darker. And I could have, in that moment, stayed in that darkness. I could have stayed in that shadow. I could have just continued that downward spiral, you know, probably into depression or whatever was to come. But at a certain point, whatever it was, you know, whether it was the angels, because when you're in that space as well, you can be, for me anyway, I just felt numb. You know, even physical pain wasn't hurting me, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember I was going out, when I went out walking, I could feel that there was discomfort in my ankle, but it wasn't, it was almost like I was disassociated from this pain. So I was numb to that. And it was in that moment that I think I realized that I needed help. And so I started talking to my angels saying, please help me. And again, this is another aspect of working with angels for me, is that when you're working with them, don't be specific about what you want. Because when you ask for help and then you sort of tell them what you want, you put your own barriers up. You know, you prevent them from bringing you the answer, if you like. So instead of saying, oh, I want help with this and I need this and I need that, I just sat there and said, please help me. Things aren't right. Please help me. And the next day I woke up with this name going over and over in my head. And she's a lady that I work with. She's a trainer for back flower remedies. I love them. I'm doing her course at the moment, and her name popped into my head. Now, I would never in a million years have dreamt of contacting her. She's my tutor. She's an online tutor. I wouldn't dream of going to her with my, you know, troubles and woes. But it was insistent. Ring Rose, ring Rose. So I compromised. I didn't ring her. I sent her an email. Well, I sort of don't like to, you know, assume that I can step into somebody's personal space, you know. So I emailed her, and you know what? Within 5 minutes, she was on the phone, and she rang me, and she said, "I'm so pleased you reached out and asked for help." We had a lovely conversation. She helped me choose the right essences to take, and that brought me back up. So it's always about ask for the help and be open to what they will bring you. And put your own.
You're talking about being in that space and going to depression. A lot of people. Could you share what Bach remedies were recommended? Because I know they all, you know, flow together for anybody listening out there that might, you know, a lot of people are struggling right now. So
absolutely, yeah. Well, Dr. Edward Bach, he started off. He was a very sickly child. When he got into his teens and his adulthood, he decided he wanted to train to be a doctor. So he started off training in medicine, and then during this time, he kept sort of getting intuitive feelings around things and realized that medicine wasn't for him, that there's something more to just what we call the conventional, you know, traditional sort of medicines. So he started to study, funnily enough, gut bacteria and vaccines. But what he found was that when you injected a vaccine into a patient, they felt it. It was painful. So he realized that there had to be something different and something better. So he started looking at homeopathy. So he literally moved from traditional medicine into homeopathy. And he himself was quite ill. He had cancer. He then went on and realized through all his studies with his patients and the work that he was doing with the homeopathy that everything is linked to emotion. Everything is energy. Our thoughts are energy. Our thoughts trigger our emotions are energy. They settle in the body. You know, for me, everything starts in the auric field, in the energy field. So we might think things for a long time before we get a physical ailment, but we can also think it and it can happen almost instantly. So everything he found went back to emotions. And then his psychic skills, if you like, for want of a better description, started to really be triggered. And he started to realize that there must be more to the homeopathy. And he loved being in nature. and he just started to realize that he was drawn to certain flowers when he had a particular ailment, which he then linked to an emotion. So he just put everything together. And it took him 7 years of study, of working with the plants, of really being guided by his intuition more than anything else to pick the right flowers. But he also, while he was working with his clients, he realized that we all have individual personality types as well. So he developed what's called the 7 personality types. Then there's the 12 main healers. But he also then found that some of those, because we're all unique and different, didn't quite always work in the way that they worked for one person, they didn't work for another. So he then developed, I think it's another 19. And there's 38 different flower essences in total that all have links to personality types and our emotional energies. So for me, for example, when Rose worked out what I needed, I was given pine, which is for, they're going out of my head now. But she put me on pine, larch, gentian, and rescue remedy, and something else. But they were all for like guilt. One was for guilt because I was feeling guilty about what was taking place. Mm-hmm. One was for feeling overwhelmed. So they all have their own different. Actually, I think I've got frequencies. I've got my little. I'll just come to this.
That's okay. I'm all about reading.
Yeah. So gentian was because I felt discouraged. You know, I was questioning myself. I had a setback. I mean, lack of faith. So all of those things were happening to me because also during that period, and this is how it happens as well, isn't it? One of the things I was thinking, I was questioning as well, why was I in this, frame of mind? Why was I down this rabbit hole? Why was my head falling off, as I call it? Because this was not me. I'm a very positive, upbeat person. Mm-hmm. I very rarely go down the rabbit hole that deeply now. So I usually recognize it before it takes place. But I kept asking what's going on. And I was watching a movie, and there was just this one phrase that this young woman who was actually struggling with, I can't even remember what the movie was now, but I was watching it, and she just went, "I'm having a crisis of faith." And I went, wow. That's exactly what's happening to me. And my crisis of faith was that I'd lost my faith and trust in the angels. Because for me in that period of time, I couldn't sense them. I couldn't feel them. And I suppose because I've worked with them for so long, and become so attuned to their energy, and I don't know if you can relate to this, that it's almost like it's natural. Mm-hmm. There's no intensity with, when you first start working with them, you get all those lovely feelings, don't you? Your body tingles, you get all the tickles and everything, and you feel really good. But then the more you work with them, they become like your best friend, and they become natural. Yeah. You're almost symbiotic, aren't you, with them? So I think my crisis was that because I couldn't feel them that intensely, they must have gone. And I didn't realize it until she said those words, and I went, "That's it.
That's it.
Crisis of faith."
How beautiful is that? And how beautiful, like being vulnerable, allowing yourself in that space. But that's so true. We almost like, because I feel that all the time. I go through these periods where I'm like, I don't feel connected. I don't feel anything, and I have to sit back and say, "Oh, it's like you become the same frequency of what you're working it with."
Absolutely. Yes.
That you upgrade to that point that you're not feeling it like you used to, but you're never alone.
No,
you're always there. Yeah. And people forget that. If I don't feel, and we're so taught that if we don't feel, then it's not true, or it's not there, or it's not, so thank you for your story, sharing that, because there's so many people out there, I hear this all the time with people, "Oh, I'm not feeling anything," or, "I'm going through this," or "I'm not feeling that. I don't feel connected to spirit." Just, thank you for the reminder.
Yeah.
We always are. We might be at the same frequency as them, that we're not having the bells and whistles, and life isn't always the bells and whistles. It's just communing, and how beautiful is like you had gotten to that point. even though you were in this rabbit hole of what was going on in your life, that you were almost aligned to the divine in that moment as you were working yourself and unwinding and seeing that truth of yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And it, you know, I think when we work with them, and especially when we're first starting to work with them, you know, and when we go to different mentors, teachers or books, you know, it's all about the signs, isn't it? It's all about seeing feathers and coins and butterflies and all of that. And for me, sometimes it's just remembering that they can bring us messages in so many other ways. You know, that just that one phrase that person said in that movie was that instant aha moment. Now, if I hadn't even thought about switching the TV on because of the way I was feeling, but I was, you know, it's just like, I'll just put it. And sometimes that's all it is. And we think it's us making that choice, when actually sometimes it's them pushing us to make that choice. I mean, how many times have you thought about something and then you've wandered out and chosen a book on a shelf or picked up a magazine and opened it and thought, oh, yeah, I can make sense of that. That makes sense of what I've been asking about. So I always say to people when I'm working with them, don't just look for the feathers and the coins. You know, allow your vision to broaden, you know, and look beyond sometimes what you think is just a coincidence of somebody saying something, or you walking past a shop and seeing something in the window. You know, it just have that openness, you know, that awareness. And even if you're not feeling anything, just trust that they're there.
Yeah, because spirit talks to us all the time. And the more aware you are, and I'm a big component of nature and the animals, and even just clouds, looking at clouds or, whatever. Yeah. It's such a magical world we really truly live in when we can take the time to see the magic.
Yeah, very much.
We'll not see it, but be aware of it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So, Susie, guess what? It's 8:52. We're getting to the end of the show.
Wow.
So I want to make sure before we end, and it's like 9:00 and I have to cut it off, that you can let everyone know, and I put it in also in the YouTube, you know, where to contact you or anything that off specials you're offering right now, or anything you'd like to share as far as you and how people can find you.
We did sort of promise card readings, and that hasn't happened, but obviously
nobody called in or sent anything, so it wasn't
that's fine. Cool. Excellent. That's good. Then I don't feel guilty.
All right, why don't you want to pull a card real quick for everyone?
What I did was I did pull a dragon card at the beginning, because obviously you mentioned your lovely bearded dragon, which led me to pull my dragon cards out. So the card that came out for us, and I feel is very appropriate given what we've been talking about, is the healer. You know, and starting off with sending out that beautiful healing at the beginning of the show for 9/11 and just for everything that's taking place in the world as well. But also remembering that dragons are such a beautiful energy. You know, they're fierce, they're powerful, but they're such gentle creatures as well. So I feel the message from this card is, you know, learn to stand in your power, but also be gentle with yourself. You know, it's having that balance, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And just taking time out for yourself. You know, as I look at this lovely dragon, he's actually just curled up, resting in the tree, really. You know, so yeah, just be gentle, because I think we're all trying to do too much and do so much, because for some of us, and I know again, it's probably a feeling that I had, I felt guilty because I wasn't going to work. Yes. You know, we've been thrown into a really strange situation at the moment. So I'm just going to do, I always love my super attractor manifestation cards as well as a corner. So this one says, I can decide today to recalibrate my energy and commit to love and joy. And again, I feel, you know, that's personal for me, you know, coming out of the rabbit hole and really learning to step into that love again. You know, we talked about that earlier, didn't we? You just being in that space of love. So yeah, and if you don't mind, I'm just going to share one of my lovely little angel cards.
Oh, you know, I was actually going to ask you if you had pictures of those you could share. Yes, I would love it. Share everything.
So these are my own angel deck. These are all angel drawings that I've drawn over the past 10 years, which surprised me because obviously when I did some of the drawings, I dated them and looked back and thought, wow, some of them were 10 years ago. But if you'd like to give me a number between number 1 and number 30, I will choose that angel.
17.
Which one?
17.
17? Okay, let's see then. So if you picked 18, I would have smiled and said definitely, because that one's fairy dreams and wishes, but you've actually chosen divine flow, which I think is perfect for what, you know, the conversation that we've had. And It is about being in our divine flow, you know, and that for me, that divine flow is different for everybody. You know, we're all unique. We all have a different skill set. We all do things differently. So it's finding that space of being in your own divine flow. And I suppose really that's some of the work that I do. You know, I call it Angelic Soul Coaching because it's about connecting with the angels. It's connecting with your soul. And it's finding the flow that's right for you, you know. And I can only say that happens when I work in a one-to-one way. You know, I could say all sorts about it, but it wouldn't be unique. It is unique to you. So the work that I do is very much about connecting with the energy. So I do have a website, which is the usual www, and it's Susie Antara James, all one word, .co.uk. You can find me on Facebook with Angelic Soul Coaching with Susie Antara. And I am on Instagram as Susie Antara 23, I think is right. But if you look for Susie Antara, I think I'm probably the only one that I've come across. Anyway.
So very interesting. And we have a few minutes here. Very interesting that you said Susie James at 23. Somebody just put number 23 for your angel cards.
Oh, wow. Okay. Perfect. And that's David. Oh,
that's David.
Very nice. So number 23. And you know what?
My husband.
Well, 23 is my actual birthday.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. So that's why. Maybe we should give
talk about synchronicities and how things match up.
Absolutely, yeah.
See, the magic's happening.
For David, he has asked and drawn the Angel of Balance.
Ooh.
So for you, David, there's very much a feeling that I get a sense of that you're quite a balanced individual. You know, it feels very much that you have an own awareness of your own uniqueness, your own individuality. You know, I want to use the word macho man, but in a way that's balanced rather than a way that I'm typically your macho. You know, I don't want to be that typical macho man, but I do have this sense of energy that you are, you know, a man's man almost, you know, very much, but a man's man who stands in his own presence and is very aware of the feminine as well. So very aware of, you know, I almost want to say gentlemanly, you know, the type of man that would open the door for the lady, pull the chair out. Now, I don't know if he does this for you, Becky, but, you know, it's that feeling about him, you know, and in this day and age, I don't want to sound like, you know, but it does feel to me, you know, some of the conversations that I have with men, that it's a bit of a rarity these days, you know, that you have the gentleman that opens the door and, you know, pulls the chair out, that sort of feeling. But also as well, there's something around for David of, about healing work. So I don't know if he's looking at doing healing work or if he's a healer himself. But there's this, even though the card is blue, it's changing green. It's becoming green for me. And very much for me, that's about Archangel Raphael bringing in healing.
Awesome. I'm sorry to cut you off, but we have 1 minute. We've got to go. So I want to thank you, Susie, for coming on the show this evening and sharing the beautiful gifts. Also, if you're watching us on YouTube or seeing this in the future on YouTube, subscribe below to Oneness Talk Radio so you can watch this show and a lot of other shows out there. And also, all Susie's information is located underneath, so you can also find out where to find her and everything like that. So, further ado, I want to thank you so much. You can go to sleep now.
I'd probably go and sit for a little bit, actually, because the energy in here is just phenomenal.
I know. I'm buzzing as it is too.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, very quickly, I would say, if I'm doing some work, everybody says, "Oh, you must feel really drained and tired afterwards," and I'm like, "No, I'm wide awake and I could do more." So yeah, but yes, it's 2 a.m. here. Thank you so much, Becky. I'm honoured that you asked me, and
I'm honored as well. We got to cut it off. Love you.
Mwah.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.